Okay, Gaylord is in the house. Actually, my house, Gaylord's house. I'm in the back bedroom, converted over to an office, and I'm so excited to be here tonight. I love doing this stuff. I love getting information out there. Hope you're finding it useful and relevant to what your situation is. So we're going to have some fun tonight, and we're going to have a great stream. It's going to be on the top 5 reasons not to refinance. You hear it all the time. People are saying, man, you should refinance, you should refinance, you should refinance. Rates are low, 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 low. And guess what? Sometimes it makes absolutely no sense to refinance. So we're going to go through the top 5 reasons I believe you should not refinance. But first of all, just a little quick snippet about me and our team. I'm Bill Gaylord with the Gaylord Hansen team. Sam and I, Sam Hansen is my business partner. We've been working together for 12 years, having such a fun time. We've got an incredible team of about 35 people in San Diego, Las Vegas, Phoenix, and man, it's just been just a blast over the last 12 years. Super fortunate. Our whole goal is to educate and communicate and then execute and empower you to make great, smart decisions. So when you go out and purchase a home or refinance, you know exactly what you're doing and you know what you're getting into. So lots of fun. We do mortgages every single day. You don't. So let us try and provide some information so that you can actually have some fun and sleep at night. I call it the sleep factor, so you can sleep at night knowing that you've made a smart decision. So let's get into the top 5 reasons why you should not refinance. Number 1, let's talk about it. In my opinion, the number 1 reason not to refinance is that you have, some thought in your mind that you're going to move. Maybe it's move up into a new home, and maybe it's moving out to a different area. But if you are not certain of whether or not you're going to be in that home for a long period of time, then boy, don't do it, because there's definitely costs associated with refinancing a home. And there's some hidden costs that go along with it. Some of the hidden costs are reestablishing an impound account. So an impound account for taxes and insurance and prepaid interest. Those many times are added to a loan at during the refinance. So it actually increases your loan balance when those things are going to be refunded back to you after you close. So increasing your loan balance at that time, that's kind of a hidden cost. And if you're planning on moving, in the near term, if you're planning on moving, in my opinion, within a 1 to 2 year period, gosh, it really has to make a whole heck of a lot of sense in order to refinance, because you're going to want to find out how long it's going to take you to recoup the closing costs. There's no doubt that there's going to be closing costs. There are such things as a no-cost mortgage, and that means that you basically have all your expenses paid and all the closing costs paid. And so you want to make sure that you absolutely have one of those so that you don't have to recoup all the closing costs. So number 1 is if you're moving. I think what I'll do is I'll go through it all. So what are the top 5 reasons for not refinancing? Number 1, you're planning on moving. Number 2, the payback of closing costs is just not worth it. Number 3, you're going from a shorter term mortgage to a longer term mortgage. Number 4, you're increasing the loan amount substantially to cover closing costs. And then number 5 is tapping into equity unnecessarily for certain things. So let's get into that. We talked a little bit about number 1. You are planning on moving. If you're moving soon, gosh, don't do it. Does not make sense whatsoever. It's going to be hard. You're going to have some fees that you're going to have to pick up, even if it's a no-cost mortgage. You really want to understand if your mortgage amount is going to go from here to here so that you lose equity when you go to sell the home in a year or 2. Number 2, let's talk about payback of closing costs and whether or not it makes sense. When you go out to shop for a mortgage, There are many times where an online lender will, or even any kind of lender, will tell you, gosh, the rate is this, and they'll quote this super low rate, and you'll go, whoa, that's at least 1% lower than what I'm currently paying. But then the catch is it may cost you $5,000, $7,000. We've seen it cost over $10,000 to get a rate. If you're saving that amount of money, you want to find out what that payback period is. So make sure that that payback period is going to be less, absolutely less than you're going to be in the home. So my general rule of thumb on payback period is 2 years. And I look at it from an investment standpoint. If it takes 2 years or less to pay back the closing costs, in my opinion, it's a very good investment. Many times when interest rates drop, you can actually pay back closing costs in a year, 14 months, sometimes 8 months, sometimes 10 months. So look at that payback period, number one, and then understand what your goals are to stay in that home. If it is a long-term home, if you'd like I'm going to stay in here forever, I am not leaving, and it does cost you, and the payback period maybe 2 years, maybe it's even a little bit longer, but you know that you're going to stay in the home, then yes, it makes sense to refinance. But understand that payback period. And again, my rule of thumb is 2 years. If you can pay back those closing costs in 2 years, then it definitely, in my opinion, makes sense to refinance. So that's number two. Number three, let's talk about going to a longer term. If you've been paying on your mortgage, let's say you originally got the mortgage out and it was a 30-year mortgage, and you've been paying on this mortgage month after month, year after year, after year, after year, after year, and all of a sudden you're down to like maybe a 22-year time frame on your mortgage, and you look at refinancing and you go, well, I can go to a 30-year mortgage and lower my interest rate. Many times you can get a lower interest rate at that time, but it bumps up the payoff period, or it basically adds back 8 years to your mortgage. And if your goal is to pay it off, then you'll want to make sure that you get an amortization schedule so that you can either pay extra principal, you can keep your payment low and pay extra principal, or you consider doing either a 20-year term or a 25-year term as opposed to a 30-year term, which adds 8 years to your term. Now, I want to tell you, there's a lot of people are like, well, I thought there was only a 15-year loan and a 30-year loan. There's not. There's all different types. Starting at a 10-year loan, there's a 15-year loan, there's a 20-year loan, there's a 25-year loan, and there's a 30-year loan. So you can adjust your interest rate or your term to a similar level that you are currently paying down on your mortgage. So if you paid it down to 22 years, maybe you go into a 20-year mortgage, right? So there are different lengths of terms, but most people out there just think, oh, it's 20, it's 15-year and 30-year. So understand that, and just understand that the payment. But if the interest rate is lower, right, you're going to save on interest, and if you can pay back those closing costs in 2 years, going to a different term is totally fine. Pay it back, keep paying, you'll pay that loan off in no time. We're in the mortgage business, but our goal is to help you pay off your mortgage. We do tons of mortgages, and everybody is a little bit different, but our whole goal is to help save you money and certainly try and reduce the time period that you're paying on that mortgage. So let's go into number 4, increasing the loan amount substantially to cover closing costs. I talked a little bit about this in the top reason number 1, but it's really, really tricky. So when you go out and you're shopping for a mortgage and you call up and say, hey, I'm thinking about refinancing. Yes, I'd like to refinance. I heard interest rates are low and I want to get a refinance. And they say, okay, great. Well, interest rates are, let's say, 1% lower, and you don't have to come out of pocket. It's a big, big word here. You don't have to come out of pocket for any of the closing costs. We'll just roll them into the loan and we'll lower your interest rate. You don't have to come out of pocket. Now, that can be good sometimes, but it essentially is adding costs to your mortgage, taking away from the equity in your home. So adding costs that are really not necessary to get that refinance is, I would really, really kind of, unless you need the money. If you need a little break, understand. If you want just like a little spending money, or you need to, pay off a car loan, or you have some medical bills that you need to pay off, or some credit cards that you pay off to lower that, okay, good. I get that. But if it's just knowing, gosh, I just don't have to pay closing costs, this is great. The closing costs are added to your loan, and it just takes away some of the equity. And you eventually have to pay those closing costs off through your mortgage payments month after month after month. So it's really interesting how that can be added on there. And sometimes, it can add $5,000 to $10,000 to your loan amount. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of equity that you're giving up. When you refinance, I want to explain this a little bit, is that when you close, interest is paid in arrears. And so what that means is, if you have a March, let's say, for example, let's say we're right now in May. Let's say you close in May, right? Your first payment would not be until July. The July 1 payment pays for the June interest. So July 1 pays for June. So interest is paid in arrears. It goes backwards. So you would essentially skip your June payment, and your first payment would be in July if you close in May. So when you close in May, because you're not going to have a June payment, you can essentially take that June payment and apply that to the closing costs, because you're going to save, let's say, $1,500 to $2,500, whatever it is that your mortgage payment is. You can apply that to your closing costs so that you don't have to increase your loan balance, and then you're going to pay it back again. So just understand that when they say you don't have to come out of pocket for closing costs, it's true, but they're essentially taking the equity out of your house. So go in, understand, be educated, make a smart decision, and really a no-cost loan is not always what it seems to be. So then the fifth thing that we're going to talk into is tapping into the equity of your home, which is called a cash out refinance, and doing it unnecessarily. There may be some things that you hear from friends at a backyard thing and says, hey, you should go invest in this particular company and take some money out of your house. You got a lot of equity, you should do this. Or you want to go buy a car. A car is a depreciating asset. Cars definitely have good interest rates. So you don't want to take money out. Or if it's just for fun money, for vacation, man, you're just taking that long-term equity away. And I don't recommend you take a lot of money out and tap into that equity, because that's forced savings, or year in, year out, month after month after month. You're paying it. It's forced savings. So be wary about that. So what I want to go through now is, again, the top 5 reasons not to refinance. And the number one is you are planning on moving soon. I'm going to start over. The top 5 reasons why you should not refinance are: number 1, you are planning on moving soon. Number 2, you can't pay back the closing costs in a short period of time. Number 3, you're going to a longer term mortgage than you currently have. Number 4, you're increasing the loan amount substantially without realizing it and losing equity. And number 5, you're tapping into the equity in your home, taking away the forced savings that you have. So those are the top 5 reasons that I have for not refinancing. We'll get into the top 5 reasons why you should refinance at a later date. So hope you found this information useful. Appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time. This is Gaylord out. Talk to you soon. Bye.